Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment of our program brought to you by Madisonville Marine. I've only been telling you about these folks for a decade now. When you look at Madisonville Marine, there's just no better place to buy a boat. It's right there in the tagline. It makes sense because right now at Madisonville Marine, Yamaha offering extended warranties. They extend the extended warranties. That deal ends on Tuesday. Skeeter offering factory rebates. That deal ends on Tuesday. G3, a boat that Bob bought from Madisonville Marine, depending on the model you get there, their rebates go through December 10th. It's always a good time to get down to Madisonville Marine and check out the deals and check out the enormous selection of boats. All right, back with Bob, Will, Jimmy, and Chuck. Hot Read segment, 2 quick questions. The first one, center Matt Crowder went down yesterday. It did not look good. Butch Jones said after the game it could be a knee. He's lucky if it's just a knee because the replay showed his leg bent like an L down around the lower leg ankle area. You hope, if anything, it's just a knee. You might have a hairline in that one. Sophomore Dylan Wiseman came in. First couple of snaps, kind of knuckleball back there. After that, seemed to calm down a little. Everything looked pretty good. How big of an impact is this on an offensive line that really didn't get everything going until you brought Jacob Gillum back in that Alabama game? They started to see some improvement. Dobbs, of course, helped as well. But now you take the starting center out of the mix.
I think if your biggest bad impact is a 10, this is somewhere around a 7. I just don't think you can afford to lose any more depth with these guys. And now you're playing somebody who hasn't played a lot of football.
Yeah, and you're going up against a Missouri team that's got a good defensive line.
And center is your most important guy because that's how the routine of how he snaps the ball, everybody gets used to. The better thing that's not as bad is that you're not away this next week with the first-time center. So that helps you. But you're always nervous about that guy because he really can cause a lot of problems if he doesn't do his job.
Bigger issue, you think, in this style offense too, where you're shotgun snapping all day.
And he's calling a lot of your pass protections up there to help everybody else, so that makes a difference. And he's one of your more experienced offensive linemen. I know that Daniel Hood liked Wiseman a lot in the spring, but he hasn't played that much. So I think there could be some protection issues against Missouri a little bit without Crowder.
You obviously have some concerns, for Crowder after something like this. And that knee brace, boy, when something like that happens, I mean, you wonder if that helps or it hurts. I know it's supposed to help, but you look at this, and part of this, too, you got to give credit to the coaching staff and development and the next man up mentality that they preach across the board.
And here's the thing. I think they are playing with enough confidence now. I think if you'd taken one of these guys out, say 5 games into the season, it would have been a nightmare. But I think the way they're playing now and knowing who's behind them and they can save some plays and you got a running back who's making plays for you now, they may be able to cope with this a little bit more. But it is important to remember, Missouri, going into yesterday's game, top 3 in the SEC in tackles for loss, top 3 in the SEC in sacks. They have a good defensive line, so that's one to watch next week. Question number 2, and this is really, the question here is, am I crazy?
Do we have to hear the question?
That's a good point. One thing that drives me nuts, and drives me crazy, so I guess I am, is watching teams that get into a 2-minute drill and there's 60 seconds on the clock and they act like it's reversed. It's like it's 06 instead of 60. They start throwing to the end zone constantly. They rush everything. They get out of their offense. Josh Dobbs getting a lot of credit for being calm and composed against South Carolina at the end of that game. Led another smooth drive yesterday at the end of the first half, got points on the board. But I think some of the credit also needs to go to Mike Bajakian because that team does what it does. They aren't panicking. They had some plays, the pass that got them down to about the 8-yard line yesterday. A lot of teams wouldn't have run that because if you don't get it, the clock's going to run, you're going to lose some time, you're going to have to spike the ball. You got 60 seconds. They ran their play. They got their yards. They spiked it. I'm impressed by what both Dobbs and Bajakian are doing in that 2-minute offense. Am I nuts, or do you guys agree with that?
I have to agree with that, and I'll tell you why I agree with that.
I know it hurts you to have to agree with that. Okay.
But even more of Bajakian maybe, because even with Worley in the game, you remember the Georgia game right before half, some of their best play calls have been in that situation, and they've not been scared to do a draw play.
The draws, yeah.
So I mean, they don't feel rushed. So I think since it carries over from one quarterback to another quarterback, I have to give more credit to Bajakian in this situation because obviously that he's coaching them through that, how to deal with that 2-minute drill.
Anything? Anybody?
No, I was going to agree with Bajakian's play calling and helping it. And I think that with the running threat that Dobbs gives you, I think it's easier to predict what the defense is going to do because they're not going to be able to blitz you as much and do some of those things, I don't think. Yep. And if they miss on Dobbs, he can take off and not just run for 5 yards. He can run for 15 or 25. And I think that makes the defense play a little more honestly.
Yeah, and you can even go back to the South Carolina game when you're down 2 scores, you've got 85 yards to go, you have 3 timeouts, you go down score and you didn't use a single one of your timeouts, and you had to use all 3 of those to get the ball back. So that tells me you are prepared for these type of situations.
I just think the thing that's impressed me about Tennessee in the last 2 minutes, or in the 2-minute situations, has been they find good matchups. They don't just go out there. They move their offensive, their receivers around. They do some different things formation-wise, and they find really nice matchups. And that goes back to what you're saying. They're staying calm and not just, okay, we got to run the line of scrimmage. Everybody stay where you're at. Just run 2 yards and turn around.
I mean, just watch a few college games on Saturday, and you'll see teams get into this 2-minute drill, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, we've used this playbook for 28 minutes. Throw it out. Let's just go nuts. And I think you have an advantage if you're a team that just remains calm, runs your offense, and has confidence, will score.
Yeah,
it's impressive to me.
And first down to me is so impressive in that. And if you go back and look, Tennessee has been able to be productive on first down and not get behind the chains right away.
Very good, guys, and we're back on time for the rest of the show. That's excellent. Sterling Hinton, Bobby Scott, Shazon Bradley, they all join us next. It's Necessary Roughness. Tennessee won 50-16. What negatives could there be to talk about? Brian Randolph. We'll discuss. Come on back on the Sports Source.